Builders create interlinked networks of websites to pass link equity between them and build domain authority. This diagram shows the core vulnerability of that approach, the shared server footprint. When multiple sites connect to one central server, they share IP addresses and name server data. Search engines easily scan these shared data points to connect the sites and devalue the entire network. If you are running a single standard website, this shared footprint does not matter. Google search advocate John Mueller has stated directly that a dedicated IP offers no intrinsic ranking advantage for a standalone site. The concern is specific to interlinked networks. Specialized hosting exists for one reason: to break that shared fingerprint into isolated pieces that look completely unrelated. If you are shopping for a solution, you will see two terms: SEO hosting and PBN hosting. They are simply two different marketing labels trying to solve this exact same footprint problem. Vendors often use these terms interchangeably because they want to sell their specific server setup as the universal answer for every buyer. This maps the market onto a single spectrum, the Control Tradeoff. On the left is managed convenience, where providers hide infrastructure and automate footprint management. On the right is owned control, offering total transparency but requiring you to manually administer the server. Choosing a host isn't about figuring out which vendor is objectively best. It is a strict self-assessment of your technical skills and what your specific project demands. The first architectural option is the distributed cloud PBN network. This diagram illustrates the mechanics. A central interface takes your sites and spreads them across a massive pool of third-party infrastructure. The platform automatically shuffles up to 500 IP addresses across 100 data centers. You get massive instant IP diversity without ever having to touch a DNS record or configure a server setting. To make that level of automation work, the provider has to abstract the actual infrastructure away from you. That abstraction creates a hard boundary. First, these platforms enforce a strict WordPress-only environment. Second, you get no root access to the server and no standard control panel to manage your files or email. You are trading ultimate scaling capability and flexibility for absolute hands-off convenience. The opposing architecture is the dedicated Class C cPanel server. This diagram breaks down the core mechanic. You get a bare metal or virtual server with static Class C IP addresses mapped to individual domains. You have total transparency in cPanel to see and assign each IP address yourself. Because you own the server environment, you are not restricted to WordPress. You can run any application you need. You can run resource-heavy scraping scripts, host independent rank tracking software, or build custom stacks directly on your owned IPs. The trade-off is the total administrative burden. You are responsible for configuring private name servers, managing security, and keeping the software updated. Unlike the cloud model, there is no automated safety net here. If you configure the network poorly, your footprint will be exposed. This model gives you limitless flexibility and absolute transparency, but it strictly requires you to act as your own sysadmin. Now, AI answer engines are crawling these networks to cite data for their overviews, adding a new variable. The shared, opaque IP pools used in the cloud model can muddy the trust signals that these modern AI crawlers look for. The clean, owned, and geographically diverse IPs of a dedicated server provide those crawlers with consistent, verifiable data points. In the era of AI search, infrastructure transparency is evolving from a technical preference into a distinct authority signal. The abstraction that makes a cloud model easy is the exact same abstraction that creates its limitations. This flowchart maps your project to the control trade-off. First, do you need a real control panel? If no, and you want zero administration, choose Distributed Cloud Architecture. If yes, for non-WordPress apps, scraping tools, or AI-verifiable IPs, choose Dedicated Class C. Tally your operational realities. If the majority of your needs point toward owned control, starting on a managed cloud will inevitably lead to frustration. Mapping these constraints before you buy a hosting plan prevents painful forced infrastructure migrations later. The set and forget operator is a solo builder who views server infrastructure as invisible plumbing. They just want to add a site and move on. If that describes you, the distributed cloud architecture is the right choice. The convenience heavily outweighs the technical restrictions for your specific goals. The hands-on scaler is a builder who anticipates growth, expects high concurrent server loads, or strictly requires AI citation authority. For that profile, the dedicated Class C cPanel architecture is required. Having a direct upgrade path to a virtual private server or a larger dedicated machine is critical for scaling. When a project hits a technological wall, it is rarely the fault of bad hosting. It is the consequence of buying the right product for the wrong position on the control trade-off spectrum.